Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving enthusiastically into the absolutely incredible microscopic machinery that powers literally every thought, feeling, and movement you make. It's a wildly fascinating journey into neural dynamics, and I cannot wait to unpack this all with you. Let's just jump right in.
So, have you ever really stopped to wonder what happens inside your body the exact millisecond you touch something hot? Or, who's actually in charge when you effortlessly catch a falling glass right before it shatters? It's so easy to take these quick, everyday actions for granted, but the sequence of events making them happen is absolutely mind-blowing. We basically have this incredibly intricate, split-second internal control center running the show. Okay, let's look at how it works. To get a handle on this, we have to look at how our nervous system is divided up. At the very center of it all, you've got the ultimate boss, the central nervous system, or CNS, which is basically just your brain and your spinal cord. But the CNS doesn't work alone. It talks to the rest of your body through a massive, sprawling network of messengers called the peripheral nervous system. You can think of these peripheral nerves like a busy two-way street, constantly relaying sensory info from your skin and organs up to the brain, and then bringing the brain's motor commands right back down. But here's the really wild part. This massive whole-body macro system actually runs on a perfect harmony of billions of microscopic messengers. To truly grasp how this vast network coordinates everything you do, from, say, reading a book to just maintaining your balance, we have to zoom all the way down to the fundamental building block of the entire system.
At the absolute heart of all this is the neuron. Its one and only job is to receive stimuli and transmit electrochemical impulses at staggering speeds. And we're talking up to 250 miles per hour. I mean, really think about that. A signal zipping through your arm at the speed of a literal race car. It all comes down to this super cool property called excitability, which is just the cell's ability to respond to a stimulus and instantly convert it into a rapid-fire nerve impulse. And the anatomy of a neuron perfectly dictates how it works. Think of it as a strict one-way street. Impulses are caught by these little branch-like structures called dendrites. Then they funnel straight through the cell body, where the nucleus lives, and shoot down this long tail called the axon, eventually passing the signal along to the next target. Dendrite to cell body to axon, every single time. But how on earth does a biological signal hit that 250 mile per hour mark? Well, it's all about insulation. The axon is wrapped in a dense lipid layer called the myelin sheath, which is produced by specialized Schwann cells. But it isn't one solid continuous tube. There are these tiny exposed gaps called the nodes of Ranvier. Because of this myelin insulation, the electrical signal doesn't just flow smoothly, it literally jumps, rapidly skipping from node to node. This jumping action, called saltatory conduction, drastically increases the speed of the impulse. It's just a brilliantly efficient biological design.
Now, how does this spark actually fire? It's strictly governed by what we call the all-or-nothing rule. A stimulus is either strong enough to reach a specific threshold and spark an impulse, or absolutely nothing happens. There's no such thing as a half signal. Once it's triggered, that nerve impulse causes ions to move across the cell membrane, making it entirely self-propagating. Basically, once it starts, it commits 100%, carrying on all the way to the end of the neuron without losing an ounce of strength.
So, what happens when this high-speed signal hits the end of the line? Because believe it or not, neurons don't actually physically touch each other. There's a tiny, microscopic gap between them called a synapse. To cross this physical gap, the electrical spark has to completely transform. When the action potential hits the terminal, it acts as a trigger, telling calcium ions to activate these tiny sacs called synaptic vesicles. Those vesicles then dump chemical messengers, neurotransmitters, into the synaptic cleft. These chemicals drift across the divide and instantly spark a brand new electrical signal in the next neuron.
It really is a beautifully timed chemical dance. An electrical spark arrives, triggering those tiny neurotransmitter molecules to just flood across the gap. They act like highly specific keys, sliding perfectly into receptor locks on the other side to open up new ion channels. It's a completely elegant sequence. And the crazy part? It's happening trillions of times a second inside of you right now.
All right, let's zoom back out to the macro level for a second. How do these tiny cellular sparks actually drive our behavior? Well, they power two distinct subsystems. On one hand, you have the somatic nervous system. That handles your voluntary actions, like consciously deciding to pick up a pen and write a note by sending signals directly to your skeletal muscles. On the other hand, you have the autonomic nervous system. This handles all the vital, involuntary stuff, regulating your heartbeat, breathing, digestion. It controls your internal organs with you ever having to actively think about it. And overseeing all of this, all that sensory input and motor output, is the ultimate control center locked inside your cranium, the brain. It's got a few main players. Your cerebrum is busy handling conscious thought and perception. Just below that, the cerebellum flawlessly coordinates your movement and balance. Deeper inside, you've got the diencephalon, containing the thalamus and hypothalamus, which regulate internal organs and emotions. And finally, the brainstem handles those vital, involuntary survival reflexes we were just talking about.
Now, when we talk about conscious thought, the cerebrum is absolutely the star of the show. It's massive, making up about 2/3 of your brain's total weight, and it's split right down the middle into two connected hemispheres. But the truly brilliant part is the highly folded outer layer of gray matter known as the cerebral cortex. It folds into these bulges called gyri and deep furrows called sulci. While the wrinkles, you ask? It's simply to pack as much surface area as physically possible into the confined space of your skull, vastly increasing your capacity for complex processing.
And different behaviors are actually physically mapped out across this cortex. Let's do a really quick tour. Right up front, the frontal lobe handles planning movements and coordinating behavior. Moving back, the parietal lobe is in charge of sensory processing, attention, and language. Down on the sides, the temporal lobe decodes auditory perception and speech. And all the way at the back of your head, the occipital lobe acts as your dedicated visual processing center.
But think about it. With literally millions of sensory signals constantly flooding up from your peripheral nerves every second, how does the cortex know what to even pay attention to? Enter the thalamus, basically the brain's switchboard. The thalamus acts as this absolutely crucial relay station. It filters incoming sensory data coming up from the spinal cord and efficiently routes it to the correct lobe of the cerebrum for conscious perception. It's the reason the occipital lobe gets the visual data and the parietal lobe gets the touch data.
Okay, let's bring this whole explainer together by basically writing a real-time signal through the system. Imagine you're testing the water temperature before stepping into the shower. Instantly, sensory receptors in your skin detect the heat, firing a signal up a peripheral nerve and into the gray matter of your spinal cord. It shoots straight up to the thalamus, which rapidly relays it to your cerebral cortex. Your brain integrates all this, processing, hey, the water is perfectly warm, and immediately fires a command back down an upper motor neuron in your frontal cortex. That signal hits a lower motor neuron, telling your leg muscle to contract and step in. And every bit of that happens in a tiny fraction of a second.
Now think about the difference between that standard feedback loop and a spinal reflex arc. Usually, those afferent sensory pathways flow all the way up to the brain, and efferent motor pathways flow all the way back down. But sometimes, like when you accidentally touch a burning hot stove, you literally do not have time to think. In a spinal reflex arc, the sensory signal hits the spinal cord and immediately triggers a motor neuron right then and there via a tiny interneuron. It completely bypasses the brain to pull your hand away instantly. It is a remarkable evolutionary survival mechanism hardwired right into your biology.
As we wrap up today, I really want to leave you with this thought. Isn't it just staggering to realize that every memory you cherish, every complex thought you formulate, and every single movement you make is, at its core, just a perfectly coordinated chemical spark? From the rapid-fire jumps across the nodes of Ranvier to the high-level conscious processing in your cerebral cortex, it is a massive testament to the invisible, elegant neural dynamics constantly firing away inside you. I hope this leaves you with a profound appreciation for your own behavioral biology. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and stay curious.